All right, we're here to give our final takes on this, where we think it might maybe going the upcoming apocalypse episode of the Four Horsemen that will eventually come out with the CSGO match fixing and Valorant player shenanigans.
Yeah, that's going to be great. That's going to be a great day, I think. Looking forward to that show.
It's going to be another disappointing day in the history of esports.
Oh, I mean, look, like, I got an appearance on October 4th. I was talking about it a little bit before we go live, where I'm going to be actually speaking at Integrity. It's like an annual gathering of people from like governments and who work for like gambling companies and entities. I'm like a guest speaker there. And like my topic is called "How Bad Is It Really?" Talking about esports. Talking about esports integrity problems. So that's going to be fantastic. And because obviously there's a number of aspects in esports that makes it worse than real sports. You know, for example, one of the points I'm going to make in the talk is, right, if me and you fix a football match, right, we all have to get together before. We all have to know what the fix is, how to execute it, and also how to like ensure that the opponents who might not be aware of it can't fuck with it. And so, you know, we can't in real time on the fly alter the plan to a great degree. In esports, I can just give you a stream of what your opponent's doing live. Mm-hmm. You will always know what they're doing in real time, digitally, virtually untraceable. You know, imagine that. You can't do that in football. You can't walk into the mind of the team captain on the opponents and bet on yourself to win, right? So we've got real fucking problems. And like I was saying earlier, you know, Canada doesn't even have match fixing laws, and a lot of these cunts are from Canada. And one of the stories that that's going to come out when we do it is one of the OG match fixers in ESEA was telling everyone, "Listen, we're not even breaking the law, guys. Go fucking nuts." So, you know, it's a mess. It's a mess. It's a glorious mess. It's why I've resigned to, like I say, I'm getting mine. I'm not doing any of this for the scene, by the way, anymore. I'm doing it for me. I'm going to parlay this into a book deal. I'm going to parlay this into public speaking. I'm going to parlay this into becoming a professor at a university and doing lectures. And I'm just going to get older, fatter, balder, and watch it burn from a safe distance. Thank you very much.
I think that's fair. I think you deserve that.
I've earned that.
You've earned that. All right. So any closing thoughts you guys have on all of this? Because it just seems wild where this is going. I do think that the heroic org is probably going to be okay at the end of this. I don't think it's the end times, especially since they have new management. They can claim that. I hope the players, unless there's new evidence that comes out, I hope the players aren't implicated in this. It doesn't seem like there's irrefutable evidence that they were. So.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, because I haven't talked about everything, but I won't start dredging up other aspects to it. You know, the things I've seen, and again, I do not know if it is the entirety of the scope of E6 investigation. I have been effectively sent documents that pertain to the media coverage. I have gone over those documents. I've gone over those calls and transcripts and chat logs and the NDA. And what it points to is this. HUNDEN definitely cheated. Almost immediately after HUNDEN cheating, ErikHillestad wanted to collude to bring everyone into a code of silence, offering financial penalties for those that would not, and effectively compelling people to be silent in future. What we do know from the chat logs is at least one player threatened to leave the team. He's no longer there. Who's to say it wasn't a deciding factor in them leaving? How then can that player be impugned or punished at all? And also, in addition to that, there was a meeting held of which there is chat log evidence to discuss keeping HUNDEN in the org in its entirety. Now, if you have colluded with someone, if you are a co-conspirator in effectively an attempt to defraud teams, why would you need to hold a meeting to get your buy-in to keep the player around? You simply wouldn't. And so all the evidence suggests that the players reluctantly accepted keeping HUNDEN around as a cost of doing business and a cost for success, but they refused to contractually commit to a code of silence that ultimately would have protected all of them. And I think they should be fully commended for that. The smartest thing they ever did was not sign that NDA, in my opinion. Finally, on the point of Nico, Nico might be the only player that is punished. because there is an aspect of self-incrimination. As I said, if you say we all knew, you're saying I knew. And the only person you can honestly say is yourself. I can't know what you know. I can strongly suspect. I can make an inference. I can give an opinion. But ultimately, Nico said, yes, we all knew. Keep in mind, and again, I'll read you the full context of the sentence because TV2.tk left this out. Nico asked the following question. So here's the following exchange. Yes, that's the thing. And that's what's true here as well. As we have also talked about before, everyone emphasized on our team knew. And then Hunden says, yes, 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 yeah. And then Nico says, maybe not in the first match, but after. Everyone knew. So, and then Hunden says, yes, and it's also, I'm able to tell from the conversations we have had afterwards, it is pretty clear more people knew the second time around compared to the first time. And Nico says, yeah. So that exchange there suggests that Nico suspected something was untoward. He was sharp enough to have his suspicions. At worst, they went into the game against Team Spirit, the final cheating example, and were aware that maybe Hunden had an advantage. At best, no one else but Nico knew, and Nico didn't report. If he deserves a punishment for that, and the only reason we even know his own mind is that Hunden basically asked him for 45 to 50 minutes. He's effectively interrogated him without his knowledge it was being recorded.
He's also like incepting these thoughts into him over that period of time, too.
Absolutely.
That's one thing I wanted to say as a counter. This is an alternative that people aren't even going to consider, especially in light of the way Richard very, very carefully pointed out that Nico is not necessarily, I'll say, neurotypical like the rest of you, and does not necessarily think the way that you all think, and will not necessarily follow the same conclusions that you might claim are your logical processes. What I'll say is this. Remember, this was a private conversation. When you have a conversation, you also are fully aware of your audience and you speak to your audience, and you will sometimes say things that are not entirely true, white lies. You might say all sorts of things. You might say things to comfort someone that is not necessarily factually true. So in a scenario like this, can you not imagine someone potentially knowing a little bit about a situation, not knowing some parts about a situation, having a conversation? Again, if this is a 50-minute conversation, who the fuck knows what else is in all the rest of this call? Like, I don't know if you have the entire transcript. What if 40 minutes of it is like sort of the guy, I don't know if I entirely remember, whatever, and he gets him to this point, and at this point maybe the guy who he might even be grandstanding, yeah, of course I knew the whole time you were doing it, and like, remember, he doesn't ever know that anyone else gets to know this information. His teammates might never get to know the information. The public doesn't. So again, you can't take it at face value. Like, this wasn't like further. Everyone, like he knew that we were going to hear this and was just admitting it.
I'll go you one further. There is a reason that there is no one else who has been recorded. And that is that Hunden has specifically, remember, this call is a year after the fact. Hunden, despite claiming he has super strong evidence, took it upon himself essentially last month to desperately scramble to acquire more evidence. And he selected someone he knew was not neurotypical and attempted to exploit that vulnerability to enhance his own case. For me, if this was a court, and again, I know it's not a lawyer, etc., different jurisdictions, but I genuinely believe no judge would admit this.
I mean, look, I think that you shouldn't consider this evidence if you're ESIC just because it was obtained in such a questionable manner. Like, you can't set a precedent where somebody a year later can secretly record a call to manufacture a gotcha moment and then submit that as evidence that this person knew at the time. Like,
by the way, that we're in a world where, like, I could literally, as a joke in a team speak with you, say, well, yeah, I knew about it as well, and I actually helped someone do it. Oh, I'm just kidding, lads. And then you cut off the speaking part of, like, just kidding, lads. It's just that part. You go on. That's the precedent we're setting. We're in some mad gotcha journalism world at that point in time.
So I just don't even think, like, even if you believe that Nico knew, I don't think you can actually accept in good faith accept evidence like that in order to ban Nico.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm ambivalent on that framing because it's only thanks to a recording that we were able to effectively blow open the ESEA match fixing. And I will say the content of that recording, no one is being asked leading questions, and it is utterly damning.
But the difference, Richard, with this is that Hunden intentionally went to Nico, so it's like the guilty party, the party we know cheated and was implicated, goes to a player a year later with the intention of secretly recording this conversation to then entrap that player. I think that's the difference. Is the intention behind the recording is super different. Like if a recording surfaced that was like their comms during that game that showed it, that would be very different.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and you know, like I say, I think this for me, I don't know which way ESEC are going to go. I think the only player that even is potentially in the frame to be banned is Nico on the basis of this self-incrimination, which is, I guess, a way of describing it. I personally, based on everything I've seen, and as I said, maybe there's more, I don't know, but based on everything I've seen, you have to give the players a pass. And certainly, I think, honestly, the stress of Nico, you know, the stress of Nico essentially being the linchpin of this guy's fucking flimsy case, the fact that he tried to trick him one time a year ago and then came back and tried to trick him again and recorded this call and then put that out there, and then TV, and remember, he's not even at Heroic anymore. He's moved on with his life, moved on with his career, and all he has said, again, that the entirety of the evidence is, yeah, I probably thought something was up. That's it. That is the you know. So
I thought I'd just throw this in there because actually Richard made this point on, I think it was on the By the Numbers that you had with Anders, when the one where I was undisclosed away. Basically, I wonder why I made that so sinister. I fucked that up in many ways, secret or whatever.
Tell him about your secret marriage, don't you?
Nah, don't worry about it. So basically, what happened was, on this episode, Richard made this very salient point, I thought, which is two of the big names that came out during this like moral outrage and everyone's bobbling up and I probably can't handle it anymore. Two of the big names, enormous names, they're Hall of Famers. First ballot was Carrigan from FaZe Clan, and he basically sort of said, like, you know, like, again, like it's sort of outrageous, blah, 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 whatever. The gist of it was like, you know, what the fuck are these guys doing? I can't believe it. I played this game. It's a beautiful game for 20 years, you know, fucking. And then Simple, the greatest player of all time, made a comment that was like, you use coach bug, you equal scum or something, right? Now, here's the point that Richard made. I won't make a long version. I'll be very quick with it. Carrigan's coach in FaZe Clan, even though he supposedly was unknowingly used the coach bug, accidentally for one round or something, and it appears he wasn't moving away. But even so, like, sorry, he's in the real house of what you're saying. It's just he's your mate, by the way, currently your coach again. Then you have Simple, who, by the way, as Richard, I'm so glad you put this on the record, because I wasn't certain, and I actually had to sort of give Simple the fucking shitty benefit of the doubt when he lied to me publicly in a tweet where he replied to my tweet where I said he cheated, Richard, and he said that ban wasn't from CSGO, which has always been what he's maintained. As far as I know, from what Richard looked into with ESL, this was confirmed. Simple literally cheated in CSGO. That is worse, by the way, than using the coach bug. You actually fucking cheated, and then, but he claims it was from the previous game, 1.6, because that's the fucked up way that you sort of wash your sins away in CSGO. It has to be in CSGO. And then, if people don't know, tried to evade the ban that he had, because it was an ESL wire ban, not a VAC ban, and it was because he had to evade that ban. He did evade that ban, rather, that if people don't know, he was banned from 2 years of majors, which is why you didn't see Simple at a major until ESL 1 Cologne 2016 with Team Liquid. In all the majors that you saw Flipside play, where Simple was the fucking star player, they played with that Davkost guy as a stand-in after, even though they qualified. So, like, basically, the idea these are the people pointing fingers. It's like, cunt, you're actually making that shit cliche that when you point a finger, 4 point back at you, or whatever the fuck that garbage people say. It's like, you fucking idiots, just shut the fuck up if you've been involved, even tangentially, with cheating. with fucking cheating. So again, listen, it's one thing if certain people in the community say these things, but like I say, this just shows that some of that reaction was essentially, I just don't like this guy, so I'll just use this as the reason to pretend I don't like him. You just don't like Cadian, etc. That's fine. You don't have to. But don't basically grandstand in a way you wouldn't if it was about yourself, especially, like I say, if you cheated. Listen, don't. I'd go ahead and say if you cheated, don't have an opinion on anything to do with other people doing ethically fucked up stuff.
Yep, and just so everybody knows, and you can go and look this up because ESL keep records of these things. It was a 2013 ESL Wire, their anti-cheat ban.
How old was he? Like 14?
Not even.
He would have been like 16, I think, maybe.
Yeah, not even that young. And then what triggered the extension of that ban was that he tried to get around it because there was the EMS1 Katowice qualifiers in 2014, and he played in that. And when it was exposed, he was playing around a wire ban.
15 or 16 at the time.
Yeah, he would. So listen, we all make mistakes, etc., etc.
Of course.
I love a good redemption arc, of which Simple's certainly done it, but you do not get to impugn the reputation of players that haven't been found guilty. When not only have you been found guilty, you have lied about it for years and let that lie snowball. Oh, it was 1.6, or was he even banned? Oh, I don't know. And then just hit off. So fuck that. That's ridiculous. I won't tolerate that. But anyway, so just to end my little bit, what I'm going to do is I've already pre-written this article. I'm kind of waiting for the press release to come into my inbox, and then I'm going to publish. My gut read is ESIC will not be banning any of the players. That is my gut read. I have seen nothing.
It's inconclusive, do you think?
Put it this way, as I said, I'm not going to come out and say they're innocent, but I don't need to, and none of us need to do that.
No.
There is simply no evidence that shows them to be guilty. There is hearsay, there is conjecture, and the source of all of it, seemingly, is Hunden himself, who has lost all credibility as a witness, as a human. This is a guy who cannot be trusted. This is a guy who is an habitual liar. This is a guy who is a convicted cheater. This is a guy who is a deluded fantasist. So if he's the source of it all, I think disqualified on that basis.
Yes.
Everything
the rotten tree, as you said, fruit of the poison tree.
But everything I've looked at, and including the fact that the server logs, which were meant to be the smoking gun, the expert TV2.dk quoted has said they misquoted him, and that maybe not maliciously, that it had got lost in translation, but there is no way server logs could ever prove Hunden's version beyond a doubt. That's it then. Pack it up, go home, leave these heroic players alone. Leave them alone. It has gone beyond a joke, especially when there are two players from Hard Legion currently playing in the CIS RMR right now with a chance to potentially get through. There are numerous players that had coaches banned for prolonged periods of time. We're all loving the fucking Mouse Sports redemption arc, aren't we? And all of this stuff. Well, go look at what their coach, got banned for and how long he's banned for. We simply...
there's tons of... Basically, here's the problem. The reason you can't say, fuck these players, they must have known, is all your favourite fucking players seemingly knew, with the exception of rare cases actually irony of ironies, like Astralis. There's literally no reason at all to believe Astralis was involved with this.
If we were going to do this, we had to do it at the time.
Yes.
And maybe we should have done. Maybe we should have literally took the 37 teams with the 37 coaches, and we should have sat them all down, and we should have removed them from play and suspended them, and we should have investigated them all. But ESIC is essentially 3 people, so that could never happen. And so what we're left with is, like I say, hearsay, rumour mongering, guesswork. You cannot issue suspensions on that basis. And I would also point to, we know for a fact that when there hasn't been headshot evidence, ESIC doesn't issue bans. We know that from the stream sniping drama at Blast.
Yes.
They will err on the side of caution, and the community should welcome that. So those are my final thoughts, gentlemen.
I think
Thorin?
we've pretty much said that most of the things that need to be said, like obviously Hunden is an outrageous piece of shit and all the things he's done is so egregious. And the worst part of it all, I actually think the worst part of it all, beyond the ethical aspect, obviously, is that the fucking imbecile didn't even get anything out of it at the end. He actually just torched everything that meant everything in Counter-Strike to him. And if you know, by the way, here's a detail people might not understand, because he goes back into Source as well, and I used to always think admirably, kept playing CSGO when he was in literally tier 3 and nobody fucking knew him who wasn't from Source, basically, in early CSGO. I used to admire the fact he was going to be a lifer in CSGO, in Counter-Strike, like this guy dedicated him. At this point in time, like, the idiot even took the one thing he ever proved in his life he was good at and fucking ruined it forever for himself and tried to ruin the lives of a bunch of young men along the way who he knew already had a precedent that they were disliked because they were either successful or were maybe just mean to people and rude when they were younger. Like, I think that is actually outrageous. I do think, like, basically, aside from people who are like just openly saying I'm a liar or something, I very rarely say people are actually pieces of shit. But in this particular scenario, again, like Richard said, what redeeming qualities does this individual have? Like, at this point in time, I even think like the fact he came forwards in the beginning is because he just knew what a fuck up he is. So he thought, right, I better get ahead of this fucking story. That was his, it wasn't necessarily like a charitable act where he was trying to do something for the scene and help us all. So I find that all outrageous. The heroic orgs, certainly, if there's some fuckery involved all over the place. Like I said, every time I've ever heard about something and heard the behind the scenes, it's like these motherfuckers, they're always trying some little scam. So they're like a shit version of Astralis. At least Astralis execute and actually get away and seems to actually help them. These motherfuckers just keep shooting themselves in the foot. And
there's actually an unrelated story relating to the heroic orgs previous management brewing as well, which I think, what are they called? Jackson, the
yes.
Danish outlets, yeah, might be covering. So definitely keep an eye on that as well.
And I would just say the saddest part about all this is that I actually personally imagine this will haunt some of these players. Some players in the scene certainly will claim they knew and probably try and keep them out of teams and stuff, no matter how good they are. And I would just say the one last thing is this, and I'll make this to make it like a half humorous aspect. Like Richard says, this is how much I would stress that there is no evidence that these players knew, unless you just think, like, it can be speculated that people would have to know because maybe the guy made the calls too obvious. Beyond that, I would just say this, and I'll phrase it very carefully. Based on the evidence I've seen in the two different cases, I think personally there's a much more compelling case Flusher cheated in professional play at Majors in 2014. By the way, I'd tell the motherfucker to his face, I have, that I think he did it. But I can only say I think he did it. So that's as far as I can ever go, and I can't personally punish Flusher. If he did it, he got away with it. So in this scenario, I think there's far, far less evidence that these players knew. In fact, there is none. It's pure speculation, and you have to sort of walk into their mind and do what everyone does, which is why I think you'd only think this and say this, if this, and then that's all just, at that point in time, you're in fantasy land. Like, you aren't an expert witness. You aren't a psychology major. You don't know anything about the big 5 personality traits. You're just speaking out of your ass about what you think you do. So I would just say, I hope, despite the fact I know it can't be the case, that we can sort of rewind the fucking clock, put the genie back in the bottle on blaming the players. In fact, I'll probably, even after this, do a tweet, which I'm not obliged to do, where I'll just say that if anyone took my tweet about Cadian to mean that he was certainly guilty and that he is somehow obliged to speak about it, that I'll clarify that it's not what I was saying. I was essentially saying, if you're going to be the loudmouth about every other topic in the scene, and then you get implied,
silence is deafening. Yeah.
Then you're going to look really bad if you don't say something, mate. Because what I essentially said was, you fucked your redemption arc. Like, now people have a reason to go, he was always the same guy. So I thought that'd be my final statement. Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.